What the world? Oh, man!
SHW. This is our wrestling.
Unbelievable.
You think you could walk all over me, but I don't see that happening. We're warriors.
We told you anybody could show up here tonight. This crowd is going ballistic. You should get dog collar now, just choking Huckabee. Ashton Starr, your new #1 contender. The Lynch Mob are your first ever SHW Tag Team Champions. You're kidding me. Logan Creed is in the action building. Unbelievable. I can't believe what we saw here tonight, folks. I mean, this is insane.
And now, the voices of Southern Honor Wrestling, Brandon Benefield and Gerard Bonner.
What is going on, everybody? This is episode 2 of SHW. This is Our Wrestling, a podcast dedicated to Southern Honor Wrestling. We are the voices of SHW. Brandon Benefield, a.k.a. B-Double, if you will, alongside my broadcast partner, GB Gerard Bonner. My man, what's going on?
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I feel like we got some pretty good feedback from the first episode.
I think we did as well. I think it went very well, and loving hearing the response from our SHW fans and faithful. And I think the consensus is the same. Everybody can't wait to get back.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody can't wait to get together again. And so we are leading the pack, and knowing that our fearless leader, Gary Lamb, could pull the trigger at any moment. Who knows? We could be back in June. Like, I shouldn't throw dates out there, but anything's possible is my point.
You never know. Just like Southern Honor Wrestling shows, you never know who's going to show up. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
With Gary Lamb, it's unpredictable. We don't know when we might be back. So, and like I said last week, whether we're back with a crowd, whether we're back doing an empty arena show, like I honestly just don't know. I'm just excited to get back regardless, one way or another. So
absolutely.
I like you. You're rocking the New Japan shirt there.
Well, thank you. I thought I'd represent LIJ. You know, New Japan right now isn't doing any shows either.
Yep.
So I'd show them some love. But at the same time, you've got the show of our great ring announcer, Diana. You got a T-shirt of our great ring announcer, Diana Michelle, on.
That's right,
whom I
man.
miss very much, by the way.
I know. I miss Diana Michelle, our
That's
lovely, amazing ring announcer.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you can hit her up on social media, either Facebook or I guess Instagram or Twitter as well, and she'll hook you up with one of these Diana Michelle T-shirts. And that reminds me, you mentioned how New Japan aren't running any shows. Of course, SHW or really any indie promotions for that matter are not running shows right now. And so I wanted to go out and we talked about this, like, you got to still try to support your favorite indie wrestlers, you know, and they're not working week to week and making those paychecks at these shows. And so we definitely want to do everything we can to reach out to them on Facebook or check out their pro wrestling tees and try to buy some of that merch and put a little cash in their pocket, man, because, you know, they entertain us all the time and we love watching those guys and girls. And so definitely want to do whatever we can do to help them out. In fact, here's some that I know of that I have.
Awesome. And while you're getting that, it's awfully funny because as wrestling fans, we often ask ourselves, how can we support our favorite wrestlers? You know, particularly when you don't get the chance to watch them every week or what have you. Well, certainly buying their merch is an amazing way to do it. B-Dub, who do you have over there? I recognize that one.
The Killerweight, which, by the way, you know how last week we mentioned we were going to start having guests on the show?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking to the Killerweight here in just a few minutes, so stick around for that. But yeah, definitely want to hit him up on social media. Get some. He's got a couple of shirt options and some other merch. Definitely check that out.
Awesome. You got a whole stash over there.
AC Mac, the loudest mouth in the South.
Hush, hush.
The Heathen.
And
the Heatheness. Actually.
Yeah. I'm sure they would both appreciate the purchase of that shirt.
Oh yeah, definitely got to hit them up. And then, like I said, these are several guys and girls that are on social media. You just hit them up directly and they'll hook you up with a shirt. You guys work that out. But also on pro wrestling tees, that's become a big thing now, especially in this downtime of no shows. A lot more wrestlers are going and creating pro wrestling tees stores.
Yes.
So, speaking of pro wrestling tees, and not just wrestlers in general, but SHW has a store there, which if you haven't already, definitely go get some SHW t-shirts there. And also
Absolutely.
the gray shirt that says whole nother level, that's
Mm-hmm.
on there as well. So
Yeah.
also on Pro Wrestling Tees, the real mean girl, Danny J, just got a store put up there. So
Yeah.
in
And this
fact,
week she's on AEW Dark this week.
yeah,
So that's
that's
kind
been
of
cool.
dope.
It's killer, man. It
Yeah.
was awesome to see her on there taking on the resident alien,
Chris Statlander.
Chris
Yeah.
Statlander. Yep.
Yeah.
And real quick, just to give you guys a list of people that I know of that are from SHW, either currently on the roster or were formerly on the roster that are on Pro Wrestling Tees. You got Danny J, you got the Prince of Petty, Ashton Starr, the Lynch Mob, Sunny Days, Owen Knight, you got Lindsay Snow, Suge D, Lee Johnson, Sean Dean, William Huckabee, Gunnar Miller, Heidi Katrina, O'Shea Edwards, Kyle Matthews, Caleb Conley, the Ugly Ducklings. I mean, those are just a handful of
Just a
names
handful.
that have either come through SHW or are currently on the roster still. And you definitely want to help them out and buy some merch from those guys. So with all that said, speaking of who I mentioned a little while ago, the Killerweight Joe Black, we talked to him a little while ago, and let's check that out right now.
SHW fans, what's going on? Listen, we are super excited about today's special guest for our podcast, SHW. This is Our Wrestling. He's one of our favorites. He's known as the Killerweight. He has been crushing through all things SHW, and he's hanging out with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our friend, Joe Black. What's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? How you doing out there?
Man, we are fantastic. So first things first, you know, everybody's kind of in quarantine mode. We're sheltering in place. How have you been faring with this situation? Because for some of us, it can drive us crazy. And I know you do a lot of gym videos and things like that. How's this thing been working for you?
Honestly, I was of the thought that I was going to lose my mind because I'm very active. I actually have been enjoying just the time to relax. I've been playing a lot of video games. I haven't missed any gym time. Found a way around that.
Nice.
But yes, I've been doing pretty good.
Awesome. So I hate to bring his name up, but I have to. William Huckabee. And the only reason I'm bringing his name up is because of what he said on social media, which made me think. He said during this period, he's watched about 3 hours of wrestling, period. So he's kind of unplugged from all things wrestling. Have you done the same, or have you stayed connected with the wrestling world? What have you done relative to the wrestling world?
If Huck has watched 3 hours of wrestling, I've probably watched a total of an hour.
Wow.
That was probably the Dark Side of the Ring episode with Benoit. And that's been about it. I have unplugged insofar as I've been doing this consistently for 11 and a half years.
Sure.
And at first, like I said, I didn't know how I was going to deal with this because last year when I got injured, I felt stir-crazy cabin fever set in. I need wrestling, but there were still shows.
Right.
I just couldn't actively participate. But I've been working, collecting pops, playing video games. But I haven't even it hasn't hit me that I haven't wrestled in a month and a half, 2 months. I've lost track of the time. I don't even know how long it's been. I've completely unplugged.
How are you feeling physically? Because I imagine all this time off, like an unexpected amount of time off, where you're just kind of able to heal up with months and months and years of bruises and aches and pains that you're finally just able to slow down. And how are you feeling physically?
I feel amazing.
Wow.
And it's almost scary.
Wow.
I don't know what to do with myself. Like, no soreness. I'm not getting up in the morning and hearing a cacophony of bones cracking. Like,
right.
What's going on? But is this really me? But it's dope. I can't complain about it.
Wow. This has brought a very interesting narrative to me, because for me, I would think, okay, pro wrestlers not getting to wrestle would drive them stir crazy. But the flip side is, it seems like a break has been kind of necessary for the pro wrestling family, which is intriguing. So I've got to ask you something I've always wanted to ask you. You know, I call you the promo king, because I've watched you do these promos and I sit in pure amazement. I'm like, how does he think of this stuff? How does he do it so effortlessly? For you, what is the thing, or how is it that you are able to build promos the way that you do? Because when you do it, it's perfect.
I used to do a lot of drama as a kid, a lot of
Ah,
theater.
okay.
I read a lot of Shakespeare, a
Mm,
lot of Shakespeare. I don't know. I used to freestyle as a kid. I was heavy into hip hop.
okay.
And I mean, if anyone knows anything about hip hop, it derives from a game called The Dozens, where you just come
Yes.
off the top of your head and you think as quickly as you can to diss your opponent.
Yeah.
And being a student of that, I didn't think it would actually be able to be implemented in my wrestling, but as a proponent of hip hop music, it's easy for me. Also, when you know who you are and you
Hmm.
connect with yourself on a spiritual level, it's
Yeah.
almost effort. Like you said, it is effortless.
Yeah.
All I need is a bullet point,
Wow.
and that's it. It's like Jay-Z, because
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe the narrative that Jay-Z has not written anything, but I don't try to think too hard on my promo. I definitely don't write it down. It's just I
Wow.
get in the moment and I just kind of fire off the top of the head.
Good grief. Good
That's
grief.
awesome, man. Well, we had you on the Mean Street podcast. It's got to been a year ago, maybe a little longer than that. But for the fans that didn't hear that, or fans that aren't as familiar with you as some, take us back a little ways. We talked about your love of hip hop back in the day, and that's kind of how your inspirations for promos came about. But just getting into wrestling in the beginning, like how young were you when you first found out about it, first started watching it, and kind of what were your inspirations coming along that made you that made you think this is something I could do?
I believe I was 5 years old, and the first match I can recall was Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan, and
Wow.
I think it was Survivor Series '91.
Yes.
When Taker beat Hogan,
Hmm.
and as a kid, for some reason, when you see all these gargantuan guys, and then you see the Undertaker, it's a divide there. And for
Yeah.
a person that thinks like me, that reads a lot of Edgar Allan Poe, that's into the sort of macabre, style things, that aesthetic, it stood out to me. And then Macho Man Randy Savage. So Undertaker and Macho Man are my earliest memories of wrestling. So when people ask me to pick a favorite, I always have a hard time between those two,
Yeah.
but they created my love for professional wrestling. It wasn't until I watched Eddie Guerrero and Benoit and Malenko and the guys of smaller stature that I said, okay, I love it. I can
Mhm.
actually do it. So I was around 5 years old when I first got introduced to wrestling. And I was about 13 when I resolved myself to I can at least give this a try when I'm 18. That was always the
Yeah.
goal. So
Wow. Wow. That's amazing to me. And so with that, I know it's hard for you to pick a favorite in terms of wrestlers and things like that. But in terms of matches that have influenced you, what are kind of your top three matches that have influenced you?
the number one would have to be Benoit versus Angle, Royal Rumble 2003, I want to say.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. That's a
Um,
classic.
that match was amazing, but the end of the match, because I was still very young when Benoit got a standing ovation, for some reason,
Mhm.
that moment always transcended professional wrestling as just a physical performance art.
Yeah.
It was something about that moment. Um, Another Benoit match, the triple threat from Mania 20.
Hmm.
So much, that, like I said, the match was perfect to me in ring, but
Yeah.
the after of it again let me know that this is more than just beating your body into the ground and
Right.
the physical aspect. And then Mania 25, easily Taker and Shawn Michaels.
Hmm. Hmm.
That match, if there was ever a perfect match, that match is it.
Yeah.
Taker is consummate professional. Shawn Michaels influenced all guys of my stature. Like
Hmm.
everybody from my generation, 2008 up, is
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels is the
Yeah.
guy. So the Booker T series with Benoit was amazing.
Yeah.
Eddie and Dean from ECW was amazing. Pretty much anything Booker T is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Too Cold Scorpio and Benoit was amazing. It's just so many things I can pull from. Those are definitely top three.
Wow.
You talked about Booker T for a second. Is there a history there? Did you train with him for a little bit?
I wrestled for him down the Reality of Wrestling
Okay.
for about 6 or 7 months. He
Okay.
saw a match between me and Chip Day. Me and Chip did his best of 5 series for
Mhm.
PWX back in the day. We did a submission match.
Mm.
And somebody showed Booker that match, and he wanted to bring that match to Texas. Me and Chip, he wanted that in his promotion. We couldn't do it, that year, and then the next year, I sent an email to Reality of Wrestling. I got brought in. The first person I saw was Booker T. As a kid, I know I would have went bananas, but as a wrestler, to see the way he constructs matches, he's very hands-on. He's not one of those guys that's just like, okay, these are the matches. He's in the locker room. He's showing guys the ways to do things that makes the most sense in a story fashion. He's there for promos, so he's very hands-on. So the 6 months I worked with Booker, that's 10 years worth of experience by itself.
Wow.
What a learning tree to be under too. I mean, Booker T, 2-time Hall of Famer. That's insane. 5-time, 2-time Hall of Famer. Like that's insane, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. I want to ask you this because you mentioned Chris Benoit a few times. You mentioned Dark Side of the Ring, which happens to be one of my favorite documentary series. What was your takeaway? Because I remember watching you on Twitter during the Benoit situation. What was your takeaway from their presentation of the Chris Benoit story?
It was intense. It was heavy. Because this is a guy that, from a in-ring standpoint, if you've watched me, you could tell that I patterned my style heavily after Benoit. The same way he patterned himself after Dynamite.
Right.
Davey Richards, that's a name that hasn't come up in wrestling.
Yeah.
It was heavy to see someone that grew up idolizing, and then you realize the reality of the situation. And for me, it was kind of hard watching that to differentiate the person from the performer, because you're looking at these things and you're thinking like, how could someone do this to their family? Yeah. And then you remember, all the great matches that he has, and it's hard to watch those matches the same and just look at him from a strictly, performer. I know as a person, he did this heinous thing, but as a performer, and it's been said a lot, he's one of the greatest, if not, some have called him the greatest in-ring performer of the recent age. The presentation of that show was amazing to me. Just from the shadowy figures of guys that's supposed to be these people. And it's just, I don't know. So it was a joy. I enjoyed watching it, but it was heavy. Definitely heavy.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
It definitely was a tough watch. And, we talked about this not too long ago, actually, after it aired. And I appreciated the fact that, Jericho, I guess, is narrating this season of Dark Side of the Ring. So the fact that they had his blessing and Malenko and, Vicky Guerrero was on there. So he had the blessing. Chavo. They had the blessing of a lot of the closest friends and, family to put it together. And I thought, that was the best way to go about it. And the way they did it was in like the most respectful way they could do it without, just trying to get ratings by covering such a taboo topic. But man, what a guy, and what a interesting show that was. And like you said, it was just tough to watch because I grew up, he was my favorite up until, all that happened. And then all of a sudden I was like, ugh, I couldn't even go back and watch a lot of his stuff. And I was at Mania 20 when he won the triple threat, and what an insane pop and feeling that was, especially at the end where Eddie came out to join him for the celebration. And that I know we're going to take a big right turn here, but being in that kind of crowd and that kind of environment and feeling that emotion and that pop, because that's what pro wrestling is all about, is making the fans feel that and experience that kind of emotion. How are you, of course you said you haven't watched much of it, but what would be your take on the current status of pro wrestling? They're doing it in front of no crowds. What is your thought on the no crowd, the empty arena shows?
I did one no crowd show. It was for Pro South. Okay. I would never do that again. Wow. Simply because wrestling without a crowd, to me, it just defeats the purpose of what professional wrestling is supposed to be. A lot of my energy comes from the crowd. As charismatic as I may be, if I don't have energy to feed off of, I feel like, why, there's no adrenaline. Why am I even here? Because I can't be Joe Black without a crowd. I can go out there and I can wrestle and I can throw some hard shots, but there's something about whether they're jeering me or they're cheering me, whatever, there's just something about the crowd participation that without it, it just kills it for me. Yeah. And I appreciate AEW and WWE, you know, still doing what they can to entertain the masses. I'm glad the guys are still able to go out there and, you know, feed their family. Super happy for guys like Sugar Dunkerton, who's getting the, you know, these amazing opportunities. Lee Johnson, you know, the captain, Sean Dean, Danny J, Alan Angel. So, I mean, from that perspective, super happy about it. Yeah. Personally, it just, for me, it's just, I can't.
It's funny that you asked that, because my follow-up, which was a question I was going to ask, you may kind of answered it already, but I'm thinking about obviously the huge feud that has happened with you and Huckabee. Sorry for a second, Huckabee mentioned, but there's somewhere I'm going here. As part of this new pandemic age of pro wrestling, the WWE specifically has embraced the cinematic match, or I like to call it the movie match. What are your thoughts on movie matches, and do you see yourself perhaps being involved in something like that, or are you kind of like, no thank you?
Since I'm such a cinephile and a thespian of the, you know, performance arts, I would love to do something like that. Especially when you got a guy like Dylan who the stuff he's able to create is amazing. Yeah. So, and I hate to mention his name myself, but Huckabee, you know, me and
3
him,
Huckabee mentions. Yikes.
I mean,
he might show up. Be careful if you say it 3 times. Like Beetlejuice.
But yeah, I would definitely do something like that. The Boneyard match I thought was amazing. I definitely watched that. Yes. Didn't get to watch the Firefly Funhouse one.
It was nuts.
Clips I've seen, it was unique. Yeah. So I would definitely try something like that out.
Wow. That's awesome. I want to go back to something you asked earlier, and I probably should have asked it then, but my brain is turning. And that is, you mentioned your love for hip hop. Following you on social media, it's very clear you have a love for hip hop. Top 5 hip hop artists.
Oh. Yeah. I gotta pick 5. Okay.
5.
I'm gonna try. Number 1, definitely Tupac. That's
okay.
Hands down, the dude's passion, his wordplay. Like, he wasn't the most lyrical guy, but everything he rapped, it didn't matter if it was true. He believed it. Yeah. And he conveyed that. Yeah. I borrowed a lot of elements from Tupac Shakur, and I parlayed them into Joe Black, the wrestler. Nice. Just passion-wise. Number 2 would be Nas. Okay. Going back to lyrics, Nas to me is the greatest MC of this day and age. Rakim is the greatest of all time, but Nas, close second. Okay. Number 3, I would have to say DMX. DMX / Eminem. I can't really split those two up. Coming from the era I came from of hip hop, Eminem's first album was amazing. DMX's second album was just perfect to me. Okay. They both helped me get through a rough patch. Yeah. So I put them both in number 3. Number 4, probably Common. Okay. For you young bucks, Common,
right,
the guy from Chicago that inspired Kanye West, and who actually he melted Ice Cube. Like, wow, Ice Cube is a lyrical beast, but Common melted Ice Cube. Wow. Number 5. That's hard. I would say Jay-Z. Okay. If you know what an entendre is, if you don't, I implore you to look it up. If you know what an entendre is and you have any respect for any kind of, you know, poetic standpoint or a lyrical dexterity standpoint, he had to write a book just to explain his triple, quadruple meanings. Like, one, you can listen to it and say, I'm a hustler, I sell water to a well. And you can say, okay, he means a well that lives in the sea, or does he mean a wishing well? Like, what is he talking about? When you have to write a book to explain your lyrics, it's just a whole new level. So
interesting top 5. I always wanted to ask that, so now I know.
Well, there you go. So let's talk about aspirations from this point moving forward. We know, obviously, in SHW, and again, we've said this on last week's podcast and earlier on this show, we don't know what the future holds as far as when we're going to go back to work, when we're going to have our next show. If we have our next show, will there be a crowd? Will there not be a crowd? We don't know yet. But I would imagine on the aspirations list for Joe Black would be the SHW title for sure. But outside of SHW, is there anything else? What are some other big aspirations you have? I mean, we talked about AEW earlier. We talked about WWE earlier. What's on your list?
Japan.
Mm.
Everything else after that can wait. Japan has always been number one on my list.
Awesome.
Because if you could prove yourself in Japan, you're pretty much made. If you look at everybody who's great now, who's on top, they had to go through Japan.
Yeah.
And once they came back, they were completely different animals. It's almost a transformative process. I used to work very closely with Steve Corino, who's done multiple tours of Japan. So I know kind of what to expect from, a standpoint of earning your keep, earning the respect in the dojo. So it's not even so much as just going there to wrestle. I want to go through the dojo system and I want to earn their respect because that's part of it. If you look at guys like Jericho, Benoit, Malenko, Guerrero, they had to go through, as great as they were, they still had to prove themselves. And I want that same proving ground because if I can make it in Japan, I'm unstoppable at that point.
I love it. So with that said, because, you think of Japan, there's so many incredible wrestlers there now. Dream match out of Japan, Joe Black versus
Suzuki.
Wow.
Minoru Suzuki.
Wow.
That's something about that dude is just, man, I don't know what it is. His intensity, just the way he is, I borrowed a lot from Suzuki. A lot.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow, that's like a dream match now. I know a match I never knew I wanted to see until right now. Like now I really want to see it. So man, well, we don't want to hang on to you for too long because I know you're a busy man. But real quick before we let you go, we always want to support our indie pals, our SHW pals. I got some Joe Black merch. Let's people know if they want to buy a shirt or anything. Let them know how they could go about getting it from you.
Joseph Black Cloud on Facebook. Just shoot me a message. Black Cloud JB on IG and on Twitter. Just slide in DMs. I got a very limited few left, but I got a new design being created now, so there will be new shirts. Once these shirts are sold out, they'll never be reprinted. That's it. So if you want one of the last ones, feel free to hit me up.
Awesome. Well, you kind of already plugged your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram and all that just then. So that was my next question. Plug all your socials. But anything else you want to say to the fans before we let you go, Joe?
We miss you.
Yeah.
We miss you guys. I didn't realize how indebted I am to the fans until I tried to wrestle without you guys there, and it sucks. I can't wait to feel that energy again, that electricity. And I know everybody says it, and it's kind of par for the course if you're a wrestler. It's cliche. But when wrestling starts back up, there will be a different side. I'm not going to say it's going to be a different Joe Black, because that'll be a lot of work. But there will be a different facet of Joe Black that I can't wait to give you guys. And I also have a gift for you. The very first Southern Honor show back. I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Wow.
When we come back, I have a gift for everybody that's going to be in attendance. And that might be a roast of William Huckabee. It might not be. Maybe it's something more tangible that we can all appreciate, but I can't wait for it.
Wow.
Now we can't wait, man. So
right.
I tell you what, Joe Black, ladies and gentlemen, the Killerweight, thank you so much for joining us on episode 2 of SHW This Is Our Wrestling. We will hopefully see you really soon, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. That was an absolutely amazing interview with the Killerweight, the promo king, Joe Black. You guys heard it, man. What'd you think of that interview?
Dude, he is such a cool cat, and
he is.
He's just so laid back. And when you watch him in the ring, and you never really like talk to him like person to person or kind of behind the scenes or anything, you're not really sure. Like I had mentioned before, we had him on MSP, over maybe a year ago, a little less, a little more, something like that. Yeah. And that was the first time I'd ever actually spoken to him outside of seeing him in the ring at SHW. And he's a scary individual when you watch him perform. And so I had no idea what to expect the first time I talked to him. Yeah. And so this time I was a little more prepared because I was like, okay, I've actually spoken to him outside of the ring before. But what did you think? You haven't had too much conversation with him.
It's funny because, you know, when we would go backstage or what have you, I always stood in awe of Joe Black. And, you know, I follow him. He's a great guy. And I love this conversation. I love getting to pick his brain. And I mean, the idea of him and Minoru Suzuki in a
no kidding
match. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Oh, my gosh. So it was amazing. And listen, we're not promoting the next show, but we probably should, but we don't know when it is. But here's the reality of it. Whenever it is, Joe Black's got something for each and every one of you. So already, you know, you need to get a ticket to the next SHW show because Joe Black's got something for us.
How was that for a tease? I mean,
right.
I had no idea. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was
Me
like,
either.
Well, now I can't wait.
See, and this is even a bigger reason why you need to be tuned in all the time to this podcast here, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know who our guests are going to be, but you can be certain it's going to be all about Southern Honor Wrestling. And good grief, this is a lot of fun.
It is so much fun. And let me just say, before we let you guys go, because we're about to wrap it up here, but I know how last week we mentioned, you know, this is going to be a limited podcast series. We don't really know how many we're going to do. So I got a little antsy because I've been at home. I've been bored. I've been looking for exciting, creative things to do. So I went ahead and I threw us on, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Play. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. So you can see us there. We also have a YouTube page now. Look for us, SHW Pod, Instagram, Twitter.
We're everywhere now.
At SHW Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And like I said, YouTube. So you can see us on the Facebook and YouTube, and you can hear us on all those other podcast platforms. So we are out there, and, you know, we'll just keep doing this until we get tired of it. And I don't think we're going to get tired of it because this is so much fun, like you said.
I'll tell you what, if this episode was any indicator, I think we've got a run ahead of us because we're getting some great content, great information. And thanks to you guys, the SHW faithful, for continuing to enjoy this. I think you guys enjoyed this conversation with Joe Black. I can't wait to hear your feedback.
That's right. And obviously leave it in the comments, leave comments for us and let us know what you're thinking. Let us know again, like we said last week, if you have other guests you think we should try to get on the show, questions for anybody that we might have on the show. So we look forward to talking to you again soon. And I know how last time we said we don't know when the next one would be. I'll go ahead and say it now. We'll probably do it weekly. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And GB, as always, hopefully you and the family are staying safe and healthy. And I look forward to talking to you again real soon, buddy.
Absolutely. We are staying safe, and I hope you guys are as well. Again, a big thank you to everybody, our SHW faithful. Make sure you're joining us again here next week, as this is SHW. This is our wrestling. Take care, guys.